Welcome back to the channel. Before we begin tonight's chilling story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new horror tale. And I have a question for you. What city are you watching from? And what time is it there right now? Leave your answer in the comments below. I read your comments with great excitement, and I love seeing where everyone is watching from around the world. Now dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin tonight's terrifying story. At 3:38 in the morning on a Thursday in February, I was in the basement morgue of a hospital in Cleveland, standing under a buzzing fluorescent light with a clipboard in one hand and a coffee I had forgotten to drink in the other. I was 29, a first-year internal medicine resident, and I had been awake long enough that my eyes felt gritty when I blinked. I was down there alone because our night supervisor had called up to the resident lounge and asked if someone could confirm a delayed release form before the morning shift came in. That was normal enough. Residents get pulled into weird paperwork all the time, especially overnight. The first thing that wasn't normal was the name tag on one of the body bags. It said Michael Lozano. I knew that name because I had admitted a Michael Lozano upstairs less than 12 hours earlier. 46, construction foreman, chest pain that turned out not to be a heart attack but still needed observation. He had been awake and irritated when I last saw him, asking if the Browns would ever stop hurting people emotionally. I stood there for a second longer than I should have, staring at the tag like the letters might rearrange themselves. Then I checked the clipboard again. The release form did not say Michael Lozano. It listed a different patient, a man in his 70s who had passed earlier in the week and whose family had already arranged transport to a funeral home in Parma. Clerical mistakes happen in hospitals. That is the unscary truth people do not like hearing. A wrong wristband, a wrong sticker, a duplicate label, a printer that spits out yesterday's patient sheet because someone clicked the wrong account. It doesn't mean the whole place is unsafe. It means tired people are trying to keep a huge machine running with old software and too many passwords. So my first reaction was not fear. It was annoyance. I had rent due, loans that felt fake because the numbers were so big, and a 28-hour shift that was supposed to end at 6. I was the kind of resident who still wanted everyone to think I was calm and useful. I did not want to be the guy who made a scene over a mislabeled tag at 4 in the morning. I set the coffee on a stainless steel counter and checked the tag more closely. It was not one of our usual printed morgue tags. It looked close, but the paper was too thick, and the adhesive corner had been folded under. The name was printed cleanly, with the room number handwritten below it. 4 South for 12B. Michael's room. I pulled out my phone to page the charge nurse on 4 South, but the signal in the morgue was almost useless. The hospital basement was like that. You could get one bar next to the soda machine by the locker room and nowhere else. The morgue attendant, Len, was supposed to be on a break. He was a quiet man in his 60s who had been working at St. Anselm's since before I was born. He labeled everything in block letters and got irritated if someone left a pen uncapped. This tag did not look like Len's work. I went to the little wall computer by the door and logged in with the speed of someone who hated the system but knew exactly where to click. Michael Lozano was still listed as admitted, still alive, still on telemetry. No discharge order. No death note. No transfer. Nothing weird. I was about to call the ward from the desk phone when I heard wheels. Not hospital cart wheels. Those have a soft, rubbery sound. These were harder, more hollow, coming from the service hallway outside the morgue. A man appeared through the open double doors, pushing a transport stretcher with folded straps. He wore a dark jacket over navy scrubs. Around his neck was an ID badge turned backward on a clip, which people do sometimes when the photo is terrible or the clip twists. He had a baseball cap pulled low, and he was breathing through his mouth like he had just walked fast. "You the doctor?" he asked. I said I was. "Here for the release." His voice was flat. Not rude. Just flat. I looked at the stretcher, then at the clipboard in my hand. "For Mr. Halpern?" He nodded too quickly. "Right. Halpern." Most funeral home transport people I had met were patient in a very specific way. They knew hospitals were slow, and they usually stood back while staff finished their checks. This guy moved like he already knew where everything was. He pushed the stretcher just past the threshold and angled it so it blocked half the doorway. I asked which funeral home he was with. North Coast. There is a North Coast funeral and cremation on the west side. I had seen their name on forms before. Can I see your paperwork? He gave a small laugh, like I was being difficult in a cute way. They called it down. They called what down? The release. Your night guy said it was ready. He stepped closer and reached for the clipboard in my hand. I moved it back without thinking. It was a tiny movement, but he noticed. His eyes shifted from the clipboard to my face, then to the body bag behind me. Not the one listed on the release form. The one with Michael Lozano's name on it. He asked, 412 still locked? I did not answer. The question was wrong. Funeral transport should not care if a ward room was locked. They should not know the room number unless it was on paperwork, and even then, not in that tone. It sounded like someone asking about an apartment. I said, I need to call upstairs. His expression did not change, but his hand came off the stretcher rail and dropped to his side. It's already cleared. I still need to call. He stood there in the doorway, not arguing, not moving. Behind him, the service hallway stretched toward the loading dock and the staff elevators. At that hour, the basement felt abandoned, but it wasn't truly empty. Laundry, food service, environmental services, security making rounds somewhere. Help existed. It just was not in the room. The desk phone was on the other side of him. I tried to keep my voice casual. Can you wait in the hall? He did not move. Instead, he said, Doctor, I've got another pickup at Metro before 5. That sentence was meant to sound normal. It almost did, but he said pickup like he was talking about furniture. I looked down at the clipboard as if checking a box, but what I was really doing was trying to remember the morgue layout. There was a second exit through the small supply room, a narrow door that opened into the old records corridor. Residents were not supposed to use it, but residents were not supposed to be in half the places we ended up. I said, Len has the key for the release drawer. I need him. Where is he? Break room. Go get him. He said it softly, not like a request. I nodded once, turned toward the supply room, and felt his attention follow me. I did not hurry. Hurrying makes people follow. Inside the supply room, the air smelled like cardboard and floor cleaner. I closed the door most of the way, leaving it cracked just enough to avoid the click. On the shelf beside the gloves was a wall-mounted phone used for internal calls. I had forgotten it existed until I saw it. I dialed 4 South. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. 4 South, this is Dana. Dana was the night charge nurse. She sounded busy and annoyed, which made me feel better. This is Dr. Klein. Is Michael Lozano in 412B? A pause. Yeah, he's sleeping. Why? Do not let anyone take him anywhere. What? Do not let patient transport, family, anyone take him out of that room. I'm coming up. Her voice changed. What's going on? I looked through the crack in the door. The man had stepped inside the morgue. He was no longer waiting by the stretcher. He was standing in front of the body bag with Michael's tag, looking down at it, his head slightly tilted. I lowered my voice. Call security to 4 South. Quietly. And have someone stand by Michael's room. Dana didn't ask again. Good charge nurses are like that. They hear the part of your voice you are trying to hide. I hung up and backed through the second door into the old records corridor. That hallway was barely used anymore. Most of the records had been digitized years before, but the shelves were still there, filled with boxes nobody wanted to deal with. The ceiling was lower, the lights motion activated. They flicked on one section at a time as I moved, which meant anyone behind me would know exactly where I was. I heard the supply room door open. Doctor? He wasn't calling loudly. That made it worse. I kept walking. The old records corridor came out near the service elevators. From there I could take the stairs up to the first floor, cut through the closed cafeteria, and get to the main elevators without passing the morgue entrance again. Halfway down the hall, my pager vibrated against my hip. The sound seemed enormous. I slapped my hand over it, but the damage was done. Behind me, footsteps started. Not running, just fast walking. I reached the end of the records corridor and pushed through the fire door into the service elevator area. The elevator was there with its doors open, holding a stack of clean linens. For half a second, I thought about getting in. Then I saw the laminated sign above the button panel. Elevator camera not in service, pending repair. I did not get in. Instead, I went through the stairwell door and climbed. On the first floor landing, I stopped to listen. The door below opened with a soft metal scrape. He had followed. I went up one more flight, then opened the second floor door and stepped into a quiet hallway near radiology. The lights were dimmed. A cleaning cart sat beside a wall. No one was there. My brain kept trying to turn the situation into something less dangerous. Maybe he was a real transport worker with no patience. Maybe the tag was a mistake and he was annoyed because I was delaying a grieving family. Maybe I was about to ruin some underpaid guy's morning. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Dana. Not transport. Man came to 412 earlier asking if Point had family here. Said he was from case management. I sent him away. I stared at the message. Case management did not come around at 3 in the morning asking if a patient had family. The second message came right after. Security to floor. Michael awake. Scared. I turned toward the main corridor, intending to get to 4 South, but the door at the far end opened. The man in the cap stepped through. He must have taken the service elevator after all. For a second we just looked at each other across the hallway. He was not out of breath. His badge still faced backward. Then he smiled barely. I turned and walked the other way. Not ran. Walked. There was a nurse's station around the next corner, but at that hour radiology was mostly dark. He followed. "Doctor," he called. "You're confused." I rounded the corner and saw a beige wall phone beside a set of double doors leading to the cafeteria. The cafeteria would not open for breakfast until 5, but food service staff came in earlier. I could hear something inside, a cart being pushed, voices. The double doors had a badge reader. My badge opened them. I swiped, pushed through, and let the doors close behind me. 2 women in hairnets were unloading trays near the coffee station. One of them looked up like I had come through the wall. I said, "I need help. Call security to the cafeteria doors now." The older one, whose name tag said Marlene, did not hesitate. She picked up the wall phone. The doors behind me clicked as someone tried to open them from the hall. He swiped a badge. The reader blinked red. He swiped again. Red. I realized then that whatever badge he had was not good for the cafeteria. Marlene put the phone down and said, "Security's coming." The younger worker looked at the door. "Who is that?" I didn't answer because the man had moved to the narrow window in the door. His face appeared in the glass, pale under the fluorescent hallway light. He looked at me, then at Marlene, then at the younger worker. He tapped once on the glass with 2 fingers. Marlene stepped closer to the door and said, loudly enough for him to hear, "Cafeteria's closed." He held up his badge. She said, "Then open it." He didn't. That was the first moment I felt the balance shift. Not safe. Not yet. But the hospital had stopped being a maze he understood better than I did. A code announcement came over the overhead speaker then. "Security response, cafeteria service hall." "Security response, cafeteria service hall." The man's face vanished from the window. I ran to the other side of the cafeteria and hit the second wall phone. I called 4 South again. Dana picked up immediately. "Is Michael okay?" "He's here," she said. "Security's outside the room. The guy is in the hospital." "We know. Stay where people can see you." A minute later, 2 security guards came through the main cafeteria entrance. By then the man was gone from the hall. They found his stretcher abandoned by the morgue doors and his jacket in the service elevator. The badge clipped to it belonged to a real environmental services employee who had reported it missing 3 days earlier. Michael Lozano told security that a man had come to his room around 2 in the morning, wearing scrubs, and asking whether his wife was still in the building. Michael said the man knew his full name, his room number, and the fact that he worked construction. He had asked if Michael would be ready to move soon. Michael thought he meant a test or a room change, but Dana had walked in and the man left. The funeral home listed on the real paperwork got called at sunrise. Their manager was a woman named Elise Morgan. She said they had no transport scheduled until 8:30 and no employee matching the man's description. She also said none of their staff wore baseball caps inside hospitals because families complained when they looked too casual. No one ever gave me a clean explanation for the fake tag. Hospital security believed someone had used a stolen login at a label printer near the emergency department. The room number had been written by hand after that. They thought the morgue tag was part of some attempt to create confusion around Michael's identity or movement through the hospital. That sounds vague because it was vague. Hospitals are full of doors, forms, badges, and people moving quickly while trying not to question each other too much. Someone had learned just enough of that rhythm to fit inside it. Michael was transferred to another floor under a privacy flag. I heard later that police took a report, but no one was arrested while I still worked there. The body with the wrong tag was correctly identified, released to the right funeral home, and the morgue got new cameras within the month. I changed too, in a boring way that probably makes me annoying to work with. I check badges now. I call floors before signing anything. I do not let people rush me by sounding irritated or official. The part one still think about is not the man's face in the cafeteria door. It's the way he knew the basement routes. The way he knew which elevator camera was broken. The way he asked if 412 was still locked. People talk a lot about strangers in dark parking lots. They don't talk enough about strangers who learn your routine, your words, your hallways, and your tiredest hour. That is what scared me most. He did not break into the hospital. For a while, he belonged there because everyone was too busy to prove he didn't. Story 2. The footsteps always started with one squeak from the floorboard outside the linen closet, then 3 slow steps toward my bedroom door. That was the first strange part, even before I understood anything else, because our house outside Cedar Rapids did not have many squeaky boards. My mom knew every one of them, and she used to joke that the house tattled on you if you came home late. I was 17 then, a senior in high school, stuck in bed after knee surgery, and mad about it in the quiet way teenagers get mad when they need help. My dad drove long-haul routes, my older sister was away at Iowa State, and my mom worked nights as an RN at Mercy. For the first week after surgery, I slept in the front bedroom because it was closest to the bathroom, with a bell on the nightstand that I refused to use unless I absolutely had to. That was my weakness, if I'm being honest. I wanted to seem fine. I wanted my mom to stop looking at me like I was breakable. So when I heard the footsteps the first night, I did not panic. I was half asleep, sore, and still wearing the brace that made it hard to move without knocking into everything. The digital clock on the dresser said 2:17 a.m. The hallway was dark except for the little rectangle of light from the bathroom nightlight. Squeak. Step. 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 Then silence outside my door. I waited for my mom to push it open. She sometimes came home on her lunch break if the hospital was quiet, and even though I pretended it annoyed me, I liked knowing she checked. The door did not open. After maybe a minute, the footsteps went back the way they had come. Same pace. Same squeaky board. Then nothing. I texted my mom. "You home?" She replied 4 minutes later. "No, bud. In medroom. You okay?" I typed yes because I did not want her calling and waking up half the unit over a noise. The next morning, she said it was probably the house settling. February in Iowa does weird things to old wood. The furnace clicked, the vents popped, ice slid off the gutters. She wasn't dismissing me. She looked tired and worried, which made me feel worse for mentioning it. The second night, it happened again. 2:17. Squeak. 3 steps. Pause. This time I was awake before it started, not because I was scared exactly, but because I wanted to prove to myself I had dreamed it wrong. I had my phone in my hand, with the screen dimmed all the way down. The footsteps stopped outside my door. I could see the thin shadow under the door change, like someone was standing close enough to block the bathroom light. I held my breath without meaning to. A soft sound came from the hallway. Not a voice. Not quite. More like someone breathing through their nose. Then the floorboard squeaked again, and the steps moved away. I called my mom after that. She picked up on the second ring. "What's wrong?" I heard it again. Her voice got sharper. "Heard what?" "The footsteps." She didn't talk for a second. I could hear hospital noise behind her, a monitor beeping somewhere, someone laughing at the nurse's station. "Lock your bedroom door," she said. "It doesn't lock." That was true. It was an old interior door with one of those tiny push buttons that had stopped working before we moved in. "Put your crutch under the handle." I did. It was awkward and probably useless, but I wedged the rubber tip under the knob and sat there with my phone in my lap until my mom's friend Karen came by 20 minutes later. Karen lived 2 streets over and worked days at a dental office. She checked the front and back doors, found them locked, checked the windows she could reach, and told me she didn't see anyone outside. She also said something that made it easy for me to relax. "You're hearing your neighbor's garage door," she said. "Sound travels weird at night." That made sense. Our neighbor, Mr. Weller, was retired but kept odd hours. He had a detached garage with a side door that stuck in cold weather. I accepted that explanation because I wanted one. For 2 nights, nothing happened. Then my mom arranged a home health visit for Friday evening. Not a full-time nurse or anything. Just someone to check the incision, ask the same questions, and remind me to ice my knee. The woman who came was named Margot. She was in her late 40s, maybe early 50s, with short gray blonde hair and purple scrubs under a winter coat. She was not from my mom's hospital. She worked through an agency. She was friendly in a way that felt slightly too familiar, but I figured medical people were like that because they had to touch strangers for a living. She said, "Your mom's working 3 in a row?" I said, "Yeah." "Poor thing. Nights are brutal." I remember that because it seemed harmless at the time. My mom had probably told her the schedule, or the agency had it, or maybe Margot just guessed from the way our fridge had 3 containers of soup lined up with sticky notes on them. Margot checked my knee, asked if I was moving around okay, and wrote something on a folded paper she kept in her pocket instead of on a tablet. Before she left, she looked down the hallway toward the bedrooms and said, "You sleep in that front room? Just while I'm stuck like this." She nodded. That night, at 2:17, the footsteps came back. Only this time, the sound was not bare feet or house noise. It was shoes. Soft-soled shoes with one faint rubber squeak on the tile near the bathroom. I had not told Margot about the footsteps. I had not told anyone except my mom and Karen. The shadow stopped under my door again. Then the knob moved. Not a lot, just enough that the crutch under it shifted and knocked softly against the floor. I clamped both hands over my mouth. The knob moved once more, slow testing. Whoever was outside did not push hard. They stood there long enough for my hands to start shaking, then stepped away. I called my mom, but she didn't answer. Later I found out she had been helping with a difficult patient and left her phone at the desk. I called Karen. No answer. I almost called 911. I really did. My thumb was over the numbers. But then the house was silent, and some stupid part of me imagined police walking through my mom's living room while I sat there in a knee brace explaining that I heard footsteps. I was embarrassed before anything had even happened, so I stayed awake until morning. When my mom got home, she was angry, but not at me. She checked every door herself. Nothing looked broken. The deadbolt worked. The back slider was locked. The windows were shut. She called the home health agency and canceled the next visit. I was sitting at the kitchen table when she made that call. I heard her say, "No, I don't want a replacement. We're done." That should have been the end of it. Saturday night, my mom stayed home. Nothing happened. Sunday night, she had to go back to work. Before she left, she set up like we were preparing for a blizzard. Porch light on. Her bedroom door closed. Kitchen lights on low. My phone charger taped to the nightstand, so I couldn't knock it down. Mr. Weller next door had been told to expect a call if I got scared, and he promised my mom he'd keep his phone beside him. At 1:50, I was wide awake. At 2:05, I heard a car pass slowly, then keep going. At 2:14, the furnace kicked on. At 2:17, there was no squeak in the hallway. Instead, there was a tiny scrape from the back door. The back door opened into the mudroom, which connected to the kitchen, which connected to the hallway outside my room. I could not see it from bed, but I knew every sound of that door. The rubber weather strip made a soft dragging noise when it opened in winter. I heard it. Then I heard the click of the door closing. My mind did something strange then. It got very clear. I was not brave. I was not calm. I just suddenly had no room for arguing with myself. I slid my bad leg off the bed with both hands, gripped the dresser, and stood. The pain came sharp and hot, but I kept my mouth shut. The hallway outside my room stayed quiet. I had my crutches leaning against the wall, but they were loud. Instead, I used the dresser, then the door frame, then the wall, moving inch by inch toward the closet. It was a shallow closet with sliding doors, full of old coats and my sister's boxes. I got inside and pulled the door almost shut. A minute later, my bedroom door opened. The person did not knock. A strip of hallway light widened across the carpet. Through the crack in the closet door, I saw purple scrub pants and white shoes. Margot. She stood in my room for a while, looking at the bed. The blanket was piled up because I had shoved a pillow under it before I moved. I don't know why I did that. Maybe because I had seen it in movies. Maybe because fear makes your hands do old tricks before your brain approves them. Margot took one step closer to the bed. "Evan," she whispered. "That is not my name. My name is Caleb." She pulled the blanket back. I heard her breathing change. Then she turned slowly and looked around the room. I lowered myself behind the coats, biting the inside of my cheek, so I would not make any sound. One of the hangers tapped lightly against another. Margot's head turned toward the closet. She came closer. The closet door opened about 6 inches. Her hand moved the coats aside. If she had bent down, she would have seen me. Instead, my phone vibrated on the bed. I had left it there by accident. The screen lit up. "Mom." Margot stepped away from the closet and picked up the phone. I heard her thumb hit the screen. She didn't answer. She silenced it. Then she left my room and went down the hall toward the kitchen. I waited until I heard cabinet doors opening. Then I moved. I crawled more than walked. Out of the closet, across the bedroom, into the hallway. My brace scraped once against the doorframe, and I froze so hard my shoulders hurt. The cabinets kept opening. I made it to the front door. The chain lock was on, and for one awful second my fingers could not get it free. They were shaking too badly. I forced myself to slow down, lifted the chain, turned the deadbolt, and slipped out onto the porch in socks and a t-shirt. The cold hit me like water. I crossed the yard to Mr. Weller's house without my crutches. I fell once on the strip of frozen grass between our driveways and almost yelled from the pain. I got up because the porch light behind me changed. Our front door had opened. I did not look back again. I hit Mr. Weller's doorbell and pounded with the side of my fist until he opened it in a robe with a flashlight in his hand. He saw my face and pulled me inside without asking questions. Margot was gone by the time my mom got home with 2 hospital security friends who happened to be off duty and lived nearby. They did not find anyone in the house. The kitchen cabinets were open. My mom's bedroom had been searched. My phone was on the kitchen counter with 1 missed call from her and a smeared thumbprint across the screen. The back door told the rest. The deadbolt still worked, but the strike plate had been bent inward and the wood around it was split. There were scratches by the lock like someone had used a key, but had also forced the door when it stuck. My mom checked the little ceramic bowl where she kept spare keys and realized the back door key was missing. Margot had been in our house before, during the legitimate visit, long enough to see where I slept, long enough to hear my mom's schedule, long enough to take a key from the bowl by the microwave. The agency said she had been removed from their call list after complaints about entering homes without proper notice. They would not tell my mom much more. My mom filed reports with everyone she could file reports with, including the police, the agency, and the state nursing board, though we later found out Margot was not a registered nurse. She had worked as an aide years earlier and and kept using the language because most people didn't know the difference. We never learned who Evan was. That is the detail that stayed with me in a way I do not like. She said his name like she expected him to be there. Not surprised, not confused, familiar. My knee healed. The house did too, in the practical sense. New locks, doorbell camera, motion lights, no spare key in the bowl. My mom stopped letting anyone informal help with medical stuff, even if they came recommended. If someone comes into her house now, she checks their license, their agency, and their photo ID like she works the front desk at a federal building. I still hate needing help. I still apologize too much when I have to ask for it. But I learned something that week that I wish I had learned in a less frightening way. Sometimes your body reacts before your pride catches up. Sometimes the part of you that feels silly, dramatic, or rude is the only part paying attention. On travel contracts, I had a routine that kept me from feeling like I was floating through someone else's life. I woke up in the same motel bed, drank gas station coffee from the same paper cup, parked under the same flickering light at the hospital, and told myself 13 weeks was not long enough to be lonely. I was 26, a travel medical assistant from Phoenix, working nights at a small hospital outside Springfield, Missouri, because the pay was better than anything I could get back home. I was alone because travel healthcare is alone by design. You arrive with 2 suitcases, learn where the clean linens are, memorize 3 door codes, and try not to take it personally when permanent staff forget your name. My weakness was that I wanted to be useful so badly, I let people pull me into things. Extra room checks, extra blood draws, extra errands to avoid looking like the temporary person who only cared about the paycheck. The patient in room 318 was admitted on a rainy Tuesday under the name Walter Greaves. He was in his 70s, thin, soft-spoken, with neatly combed white hair and hands that rested folded over the blanket like he was posing for a church directory photo. He had no visitors listed, no emergency contact who answered. The chart said weakness, dehydration, possible confusion. That last word made everyone gentle with him. The first time I went in, he smiled and said, "You're the one from Arizona." I looked at my badge. It only had my first name, Marisol. Travel staff are careful about badges. "Yeah," I said. "Phoenix." He nodded toward the window, which showed nothing but rain and the reflection of the room. Long way from room 214. I stopped with the blood pressure cuff in my hand. Room 214 was my motel room. Not hospital room 214. The motel. A 2-story budget crest off Highway 65 with vending machines that stole your quarters and a lobby that smelled like microwave popcorn. I gave him a polite smile because that is what you do with patients who say strange things. "Hospital only has 3 floors, Mr. Greaves." He smiled back. "Does it?" I wrote it off as confusion because writing things off is part of healthcare too. Not every odd sentence is a clue. People come in sick, medicated, scared, sleep-deprived. Some of them say things that sound personal because the brain grabs whatever words are nearby. Still, I did not like the way he watched me after that. Not in a dirty way. Not even in an aggressive way. It was more like he was waiting for me to remember something. Over the next 2 nights, people started talking about him at the nurse's station. Not loudly. Hospitals have thin curtains and family members who appear out of nowhere. But room 318 became the kind of patient everyone mentioned in half sentences. He told me my dog's name, one tech said. A respiratory therapist said. He asked if my ex still had the blue truck. The unit secretary, Brenda, laughed when she heard that. Facebook. You people put everything online. That sounded reasonable. Brenda was 58 and believed every problem in modern life began when people stopped using landlines. Then Mr. Greaves told Brenda the exact words she had said during a phone call in the parking lot. I wasn't there for the call, but I was there after. She came back from his room, holding a stack of intake forms with both hands. Her face looked empty. I asked if she was okay. He said, tell your sister to sell the house before August. Nobody laughed after that. The hospital was not big, and night shift gossip moved faster than the elevator. By midnight, Everyone had a theory. He had worked there years ago. He knew someone on staff. He was psychic, said one CNA, and everyone told her to stop because nobody wanted that word in the air at 2 a.m. I did not believe in that. I still don't. What I believed was that someone was getting information and using it. The hard part was figuring out how. The second warning came when I brought Mr. Greaves a blanket. His room was cold because the window leaked around the frame, and he had asked for one in that soft, apologetic voice that made people want to help him. As I spread it over him, he said, "You shouldn't call your mother from behind the dumpsters." I froze. He looked up at me with mild concern, like he had reminded me to wear a coat. I had called my mom from behind the hospital dumpsters the night before because it was the only spot where my phone got enough signal and nobody from the unit could hear me cry. I wasn't sobbing or anything dramatic. I was just tired. My car needed brakes, my motel heater rattled all night, and my mom had asked if I was eating enough, which was somehow the question that got to me. No patient could have heard that call from room 318. I said, "Do you need anything else?" He watched my face. "You're careful with everybody but yourself." It was the kind of sentence that sounds wise if you ignore where it came from. I left the room. At the nurse's station, I checked his chart more carefully. Walter Greaves, 74, admitted through the ER, Medicare on file, address in Lebanon, Missouri. No major history in our system. No photo ID scanned, which was not unheard of for older patients who arrived by ambulance. I asked the ER clerk if she remembered him. She shrugged. "Older guy. Quiet. Had a cane, I think." "Who brought him?" "County EMS. The ambulance run sheet was bare bones. Picked up at a Walmart parking lot after a bystander called about a man sitting in his car for too long. No family. No wallet except an insurance card and $32 cash. That should have made me feel sad. Instead, it made me feel watched. The third warning came from a place I did not expect, my motel. I got back there the next morning after my shift, exhausted and damp from the rain. The woman at the front desk, Kelsey, waved me over before I could reach the stairs. "Hey, you work at that hospital, right?" I said yes. "Somebody called yesterday asking to leave you a message." My hand tightened around my room key. "Who?" "Older man. Said he was your uncle." "I don't have an uncle here." Kelsey looked embarrassed. "I didn't give out your room number." "He already knew it." She hesitated. That was answer enough. The message was written on a pink slip. "Mari, don't forget your quiet route." Only my family called me Mari. I had not told anyone at the hospital. I changed rooms that morning. The motel moved me to 109 near the lobby after I made enough of a fuss that the manager stopped treating me like a paranoid guest and started treating me like a problem he wanted solved. I also told the charge nurse, a woman named Allison, who had worked night shift so long she could make bad news sound like a weather report. Allison listened without interrupting. Then she said, "You don't go in 318 alone anymore." For one shift, we followed that rule. Then the storm hit. It was a hard Midwestern storm, the kind that makes the whole building seem smaller. Rain slapped the windows. The lights flickered twice around midnight. The ER filled with minor crashes and people who slipped on wet steps. Every floor got short at once. Room 318's call light came on at 1:42. Allison was in another room, helping with a fall risk patient. The other tech was downstairs transporting labs. I stood at the desk for a few seconds, staring at the blinking light, already annoyed at myself because I knew I was going to answer it. Useful. That old trap. I told Brenda, "I'm just seeing what he needs." She said, "Leave the door open." I did. Mr. Greaves was sitting upright when I entered. The room was dim except for the monitor light and the gray flashes of lightning through the blinds. "My chest feels tight," he said. That got my attention. Chest tightness is one of those phrases you do not ignore. I checked his oxygen, his pulse, his color. He looked fine. Calm. Too calm. I asked him to describe the pain, and he pressed a hand lightly to the center of his chest like an actor marking a spot. "Could you close the curtain?" he asked. "No," I said. His eyes shifted toward the open door, then back to me. The monitor flickered as the lights dipped. For half a second the screen went black, then came back with a sharp beep. Mr. Greaves said, "You moved rooms." I stepped back. He smiled faintly. 109 now. Better by the office. There was no way to dress that up as confusion. I reached for the wall call button, but he said, "Allison's busy." My hand stopped an inch from the button. He was right. I could hear Allison down the hall, her voice firm and distant. "Brenda's on the phone," he said. "Also right." Then he pointed at the chair beside the bed. "Sit down, Maury." It was not loud. That was the worst part. He said it like he expected me to obey because obedience had carried me all the way into that room. I looked at the chair, then at the bed, then at the floor. Under the bed, half tucked behind his overnight bag, was a folded sheet of yellow legal paper. It had my name on it. Not Marisol. Maury. I could see other names too. Brenda. Allison. Kendra from Respiratory. Tom H. Maintenance. Next to my name were short lines of writing, neat and tight. Motel 214 crossed out. 109 lobby side. Calls mom behind dumpsters. Takes east stairs when upset. Stops at vending after shift. Lone call Tuesday. For a few seconds, the storm was the only sound in the room. He had not guessed. He had not sensed anything. He had collected us. I looked up and found him watching me read upside down. His face stayed pleasant. "You can help me," he said. I made myself breathe normally. If I grabbed the paper, he would know. If I hit the call button, he might know. If I ran, he would definitely know, and running in a hospital brings people, but not always fast enough. He was old, but old does not mean harmless. There was a cane leaning against his bedside table, and I had no idea what else was in the bag. So I did the only thing that felt possible. I became boring. I straightened the blanket and said, "I'm getting the nurse." His smile thinned. "I asked you to sit." "I heard you," I said. Chest tightness means nurse. He watched me walk to the door. Every step felt fake. I did not look back. I did not speed up. I did not let my shoulders rise. At the doorway, I turned sideways like I was making room for equipment, then walked into the hall and kept going. I did not stop until I reached the nurse's station. Then I said very quietly, "Allison." Now. Something in my voice brought her out of the room she was in. Brenda hung up. The respiratory therapist looked over. I told them there was a paper under his bed with staff names and routines. I told them he knew my new motel room. I told them not to send anyone in alone. Allison's expression did not change much, but she picked up the phone and called house supervisor, security, and the ER physician. Then she walked to 318 with 2 other staff members and left me at the desk. I watched from the station. They entered the room together. A minute later, Allison came back out holding the yellow paper in a gloved hand. Her face had changed. Security searched Mr. Greaves's belongings and found more papers folded inside a paperback book. Not just names, details, break habits, cars, which door people used when they smoked, which staff talked about money, which staff cried in the parking lot. There was also an old prepaid phone with several numbers saved under first names only. The police were called later, but they did not save us from anything in the moment. By the time they got there, the immediate danger had already been contained by a locked room, 2 security guards, and a charged nurse who suddenly had no patience left in her body. Mr. Greaves stopped acting confused the second security entered. He asked for a lawyer. He would not give a real address. The insurance card turned out to be valid, but not his. The real Walter Greaves was alive in another county and had reported his wallet missing months earlier. I never found out the man's real name. The hospital did what hospitals do after something scary. Meetings, emails, new rules written in careful language. Staff were told not to discuss personal matters in public areas, not to wear badges outside the building, not to post shift information online, not to dismiss unusual patient knowledge as harmless confusion. The motel changed my room again, then I moved to a different one across town and paid the higher weekly rate because sleep mattered more than saving money. I finished the contract, but I stopped being the person who answered every call light alone just to prove I belonged. I started asking other staff to walk with me when something felt off. I covered my badge at gas stations. I stopped making phone calls behind buildings just because I was embarrassed to cry where people could see. The worst part was not that he knew things. People can learn things. People can listen, watch, search, ask the right questions, and wait for tired workers to fill in the blanks. The worst part was how easily he used our kindness as a door. He looked helpless, so we stepped closer. He sounded lonely, so we stayed a minute longer. He asked for small favors, so we gave them because that is the job. I still work in healthcare. I still believe most people in hospital beds are scared, hurting, and deserving of patience. But I also know now that being needed can feel exactly like being used until you find the paper with your name on it. My first night alone on the 3rd floor at St. Bridget's in Baltimore was a Tuesday in November, and the first thing that went wrong was the call bell over room 309 blinking red. I was 24, 6 months out of nursing school, and St. Bridget's was my first real full-time job after doing agency shifts in clinics. The place had been a city hospital decades earlier, then a rehab center, and now only half of it had been converted into a hospice wing. The east side of the 3rd floor was open. The west side was plastic sheeting, taped signs, and locked doors. Room 309 was on the west side. I was alone in that hallway because 2 aides had called out and the charge nurse, Denise, was covering admissions downstairs. I had 6 patients, all quiet, all asleep except Mr. Riley in 304, who liked to ask for ice chips every hour. I also had the kind of nervous energy you get when you want everyone to think hiring you was not a mistake. So when the call bell panel flashed 309, I did not run to Denise. I stood there, looking at the red light, listening to the soft repeating chime, and remembered what the day nurse had said during handoff. Ignore 309. Old wiring. Maintenance knows. That explanation made sense. Everything in that building had an old problem attached to it. The radiators hissed, even when they were off. Half the outlets had no power. The bathroom doors had deadbolt holes from when the rooms were private hospital suites. The nurse's station still had a drawer labeled film, from when x-rays came up in envelopes. I reached over and silenced the bell from the master panel. It went quiet for maybe 4 seconds. Then it started again. This time I walked to the edge of the plastic curtain that separated the active hospice rooms from the renovation side. The plastic had been taped to the ceiling, but somebody had peeled one side loose near the floor. Through that slit I could see the old hall beyond it, darker than our side, with the construction lights unplugged and lying on the baseboard. Room 309's light was on above the door. I did not step through. I called down to the 1st floor and asked for maintenance. The man who answered sounded half asleep. If it's 309, it's wiring. Can someone come look anyway? Not tonight unless there's water or smoke. I said okay because I did not want to sound difficult on my first week. Then I stood there with my phone in my hand until Mr. Riley called from 304, asking if I forgot about his ice. For the next hour, nothing happened. I made my rounds. I charted vitals. I found an extra blanket for Mrs. Baines in 307. Around 1:15 a.m., I saw a man standing near the elevator with a paper coffee cup and a gray hoodie under a reflective vest. He was not in the hall 5 seconds earlier. He looked about 40, maybe older, with a shaved head and a trimmed beard. His vest had no company name on it, just silver stripes. He had a laminated badge clipped low on his jeans, turned backward. "You the nurse on 3?" he asked. I said yes. Call bell acting up. I looked toward the panel. Room 309 was dark now. "Your maintenance?" "Contractor. Low voltage." He said it like he had answered the question too many times that night. I almost felt stupid for being suspicious. He was carrying a clipboard and one of those canvas tool bags with red handles. Contractors came in and out during the day. Sometimes they worked at night if the hall was too busy during visiting hours. Still, something in the way he looked around bothered me. He did not look at the ceiling tiles or the call panel or the doors. He looked at the nurse's station, the medicine room keypad, the break room, and then me. You alone up here? I gave the answer Denise had told us to give whenever anyone asked. No, we're staffed. He nodded once, like that was information he already had and was checking for a lie. I asked his name. Ray. What company? He smiled, not friendly exactly, but not rude either. The one your boss keeps calling. Then he stepped through the loose side of the plastic curtain before I could say anything else. I went back to the desk and called Denise. No answer. I tried again. Still no answer. She was probably with the admission. I wrote a note on a sticky pad. Contractor in 309, says low voltage. Then I hated how official that looked when I did not actually know he was supposed to be there. Room 309 stayed quiet until 2:03. I remember the time because I had just opened a pudding cup with one hand while finishing notes with the other. The panel chimed, the red light blinked, and this time a sound came through the little speaker next to the button. Not clear words at first, just static, then breathing. I leaned close to it. A voice whispered, "Don't move the bed." I froze with the spoon still in my hand. The room number on the panel was 309. The speaker crackled again. "Don't let them move the bed." I hit the talk button without thinking. "Who is this?" No answer. I called Denise again. This time she picked up, breathless. "Can you come up here?" I said. "Give me 10. What happened?" The call bell in 309. Somebody's talking through it. She was quiet for a second. "Stay out of that room." That did more to scare me than the voice did. I asked if a contractor named Ray was supposed to be on 3. "No," she said immediately. "Do not go past the plastic." The line clicked with another call coming in, and she said she was sending someone up. I looked toward the plastic, expecting to see it moving. Nothing. Then Mrs. Bain's bed alarm went off in 3:07. I had to go to her. That is the part people always ask about when I tell this. Why did you not just leave? Why did you not lock yourself in a room? The answer is that I had 6 dying people on that hallway, and one of them had just tried to stand up without help. Fear does not cancel your responsibilities. It just makes your hands clumsy while you do them. I got Mrs. Bain settled. Her room smelled like lavender lotion and the orange cleaner housekeeping used on the floors. She smiled at me like a child who had been caught sneaking cookies. "Someone was in the hall," she said. I tried to keep my voice normal. "Staff." "A man. He didn't walk like staff." I asked what she meant. She closed her eyes, already drifting. "Staff walk fast." Back at the station, the call bell was silent. The plastic curtain was still. I should have stayed there and waited for Denise. Instead, I did what I thought was the responsible thing. I opened the supply closet and took the heavy flashlight we used during power flickers. Then I stepped to the edge of the plastic and listened. There was a faint dragging sound from room 309. Not footsteps. Not tools. Furniture scraping slowly over old tile. I pushed through the gap. The renovation hall was colder. The floor on that side had not been waxed, and every step I took made a flat, dusty sound. I passed room 308, empty except for stacked drywall. Room 309 was 10 feet farther down, its door partly open. Inside, the bed was made. That was the detail that made no sense to me. Renovation rooms do not have fresh sheets. They have bare mattresses tipped against the wall, or no bed at all. But this bed had a white blanket tucked tight and a pillow centered at the top. The curtains were closed, even though the window faced a brick wall. On the pillow was a hospital wristband. I did not go in all the way. I stood at the threshold and shined the light on it. The name was printed in faded black letters. Mara Ellison. Under it was a date from 2014. I had never heard the name. The band looked old, yellowed at the edges, but the plastic snap was clean. It had been placed there recently. Then the bed moved. Not by itself. The far end bumped the wall with a soft thud, like someone behind it had shifted their weight. I backed away so fast my shoulder hit the doorframe. Something clicked behind the bed. A panel. A latch. Something opening. I ran. At the nurse station, I hit the overhead page button with my whole palm. "Denise to 3 East now," I said, and my voice cracked through every ceiling speaker on the floor. "All available staff to 3 East." Then I remembered the fire doors. The old building had batch-controlled smoke doors between the active unit and the renovation side. During the day, they were propped open for workers, but at night they were supposed to be closed. Someone had taped the latch, probably to make carrying materials easier. I ripped the tape off. My hands were shaking so badly, I tore skin near my thumbnail. The left door swung in and caught. The right door followed with a loud magnetic clack. I heard running from the renovation side. A shoulder hit the doors. Not a knock. Not someone trying to be let out politely. A full body hit that shook the glass window. "Open it," a man said. I stepped backward until I hit the desk. Through the narrow safety glass, I saw Ray's face. He did not look angry. That was worse. He looked focused, like he was trying to solve a small problem. "Open the door," he said again. "I'm supposed to be here." I picked up the phone and dialed the front desk. At the same time, I kept one finger on the overhead page. "Security to 3 East," I said louder now. "Security to 3 East. Man in renovation hall." He looked up at the ceiling speaker. Behind me, Mr. Riley called, "Nurse?" Ray leaned closer to the glass. "Lena." I had not told him my name. I pressed the page button again. "Denise now." Ray disappeared from the window. A second later, the plastic curtain at the far end of the renovation hall pulled tight as he tried another way through. Then he came back and hit the smoke doors again. The doors held. Denise arrived from the stairs with 2 aides and a respiratory therapist still wearing gloves from whatever he had been doing downstairs. She had a rolling blood pressure machine in front of her like a shield. "Where is he?" she asked. I pointed. Ray was no longer at the door. For about 3 seconds, all 5 of us stood completely still. Then there was a loud metallic crash from inside room 309. Security came up 2 minutes later. Real security, 2 men I recognized from orientation, not contractors. They went through the smoke doors together. I stayed by the desk with Denise's hand on my arm hard enough to hurt. They found the bed shoved away from the wall. Behind it was not a sealed patient door exactly. It was an old staff pass-through that had been covered with paneling years earlier, then partly exposed during renovation. It led into a narrow storage space between the old walls, the kind of useless leftover area old buildings have after being remodeled too many times. There were dust-covered file boxes in there, broken 4 poles, a stack of old privacy curtains, and a plastic chair. Ray was not inside when they opened it. He had gotten out through another maintenance access door farther down, one nobody on night shift even knew existed. But he left his clipboard. That clipboard is the reason I still talk about room 309 like it was a person. It had a printed floor map folded under the clip, and on that map someone had circled the nurse station, the staff bathroom, the medication room, and the little alcove where we left our bags. My name was written in the margin. Not just Lena. My full name. Next to it were my first 3 shifts, copied exactly from the paper schedule hanging in the staff lounge downstairs. There were notes in block letters. New RN. Parks West Lot. Blue Civic. Lunch 2:30. Checks 304 often. The old wristband with Mara Ellison's name was in a plastic bag beside the map. Denise later told me Mara had been a patient at St. Bridget's Back when it was still a rehab facility. She had died long before the hospice company bought the building. There was no dramatic story, no hidden murder, no ghost in the wall. Her name had probably come from one of the abandoned file boxes. That almost made it worse. He had used a dead woman's name as decoration. The police did come later, but by then the hallway was full of staff and the immediate danger was over. They took statements. Security checked exits. Maintenance finally cared about the old wiring. The access space was sealed with actual construction-grade panels 2 days later, not a bed and a sheet. They never caught him, at least not while I worked there. The badge he left was fake, printed on cheap plastic with a stock photo background. The vest was the kind anyone can buy. No company admitted sending him. Nobody could explain how long he had been using that wall space, or why he picked that night to make contact through the call system. I stayed at St. Bridget's for another 3 months because I needed the money, and because quitting right away felt like letting the place win. but I changed small things. I stopped wearing my full name badge where visitors could read it from across a room. I stopped parking in the same row. I asked Denise to move the paper schedule into a locked office, and when she said that was a little much, I showed her the copy from the clipboard again. She moved it that afternoon. I do not work night shift anymore. The thing I keep coming back to is not the voice on the intercom or the wristband on the pillow. It is the note about 304. Checks 304 often. He had watched me long enough to know which patient needed me most. People think danger always announces itself by looking wrong. Sometimes it studies the normal parts of your day first. Then it waits in the one room everybody told you not to worry about. The elevator doors opened while the car was still moving, just enough for me to see a strip of dark hallway slide past like a film frame. I was 27, a third-year medical student from Columbus, doing an away rotation at a teaching hospital in Philadelphia, and I had been awake for almost 22 hours. It was 3:08 in the morning. I was alone because my resident had sent me to grab blood tubes from the ICU supply room, and I was too tired to remember that the old staff elevators had signs taped inside warning us not to use them during service hours. I was also broke in the specific way medical students get broke, where you have a future on paper and no money in your checking account. I had rented the cheapest furnished room I could find, 6 blocks from the hospital, above a closed nail salon. I was embarrassed by how exhausted I was all the time, so when strange things happened, my first reaction was to explain them as normal hospital weirdness. Old elevators skip. Wards close. Lights flicker. Nobody wants to be the student who calls security, because a building built in 1958 acts like it was built in 1958. I had pressed 7 for the ICU. The elevator stopped on M. There was no M button on the panel. The doors opened all the way. The hallway beyond them was dark except for one light at the far end. The walls were the same dull beige as the rest of the hospital, but older, with a green stripe painted at shoulder height. A rolling hamper sat near the wall with a sheet hanging over one side. The air smelled stale, like dust and old coffee. I leaned out and looked for a sign. MED Surg North, the sign said. I had been in that hospital for 3 weeks. There was no Med SURG North. I hit the door close button. Nothing happened. I hit 7 again. The number lit up, then went dark. Somewhere down the hall, a patient monitor beeped slowly. Beep. 5 seconds. Beep. I stood in the elevator, holding an empty plastic tube bag, thinking about all the ways this could be ordinary. Maybe the hospital had a closed floor they used for storage. Maybe the elevator was in service mode. Maybe someone had moved equipment and forgotten to turn off a training monitor. Then a man stepped out from a doorway halfway down the hall. He wore navy work pants, a navy jacket, and a hard hat with an orange sticker on the front. He had a tool belt, but it hung too loose, like it belonged to someone bigger. He raised one hand. "You lost, Doc." People called everyone in a white coat Doc. I was not one. I had a short white coat, wrinkled scrub pants, and a student badge that kept flipping backward on my lanyard. "I'm trying to get to 7, I said. "Elevator's testing." "Okay, I'll take the stairs." He walked closer, not fast, but directly toward me. "Can't use stairs on this side." Wet paint. There was no smell of paint. I reached for the close button again. He said, "Hold up. You from Ohio?" That stopped me. I looked down. My hospital badge had my name and the word visiting under it, but it did not say Ohio. My medical school badge did. It had been clipped behind my hospital ID all night, and I noticed only then that it was missing. I touched the empty spot on my lanyard. The man smiled a little. "Drop something?" I did not answer. He was close enough now that I could see the sticker on his hard hat. It was not a hospital sticker. It was from a moving company. "Come on," he said. "I think I saw it back here." The elevator doors stayed open behind me. This is the part of the story where I wish I could say I walked away immediately. I did not. I took 2 steps into the hall because losing a student ID on an away rotation felt like a disaster. Hospitals do not treat visiting students like permanent staff. Everything is temporary. Your login, your badge, your locker, even your right to be in certain hallways. I had already been warned once for tailgating through a door when my badge did not scan. The monitor kept beeping at the far end. The man turned into a room and flicked on a light. "Here," he said. The room looked like a patient room, but stripped down. No medical gas panels. No Sharps box. No curtains between beds. Just one bed in the middle with a gray blanket pulled up neatly. Something was clipped to the blanket. My student ID. Not dropped on the floor. Not lying near a doorway. Clipped. The photo faced up. For a few seconds I did not move. The man stood on the other side of the bed, watching me over it. His face had gone flat, like he was done pretending to be helpful. "You shouldn't leave stuff around," he said. I backed up. He moved at the same time. I turned and walked fast, then faster, toward the elevator. I did not run until I heard his tool belt hit the doorframe behind me. The elevator was still open. I got inside and pressed L17 door close alarm, anything my fingers touched. The doors started to close. His hand came through at the last second. The doors bumped it and opened again. He stepped in with me. The smell of him filled the car, sweat and cigarette smoke under some kind of mint gum. He did not touch me. He did not have to. He stood between me and the doors with one hand on a small key in the service panel. "Relax," he said. I stared at the panel. The M light was still on even though there was no button. The floor numbers above the door were blank. "I have to get back to ICU," I said. "You will." He turned the key. The elevator jerked once, then stopped between floors. My phone had one bar, then none. The man held out his hand. "Badge." I kept my voice as boring as I could make it. "I needed to get upstairs." "You'll get another one." He wanted the badge. Maybe the phone too. Maybe just to scare me. Maybe something worse. I still do not know. I looked at the little emergency phone cabinet under the panel. It was metal with a red button and a label that said "Press for Operator." He saw me look. "Doesn't work in service mode," he said. I believed him for half a second. Then I remembered orientation. The hospital safety officer had made a joke about those phones being older than some attendings, but wired like cockroaches. They worked when everything else failed. I put one hand on the wall like I was steadying myself. "I'm going to pass out," I said. He made an annoyed sound. "I mean it," I said. "I haven't eaten since noon. I'm on rotation. I'm not trying to be difficult." He looked at my face, probably trying to decide if I was faking. I let my knees bend. Not a full collapse. Just enough that he reached toward me without thinking. That gave me the angle. I hit the red button with the side of my fist. A dial tone clicked on so loud it sounded like it came from the ceiling. Then a woman's voice said, "Hospital operator." The man grabbed for the phone panel. I said loudly, "This is Ravi Patel, visiting med student, trapped in staff elevator B with an unknown man claiming to be facilities. We are between floors near Med SURG North or Service Level M." The operator did not hesitate. "Stay on the line." The man stared at me. His calm face cracked for the first time. I kept talking, not to him, but to the little speaker. "He has a key. He has my student ID. He is wearing a navy jacket and a hard hat." The man reached past me and mashed the button. The line stayed open. "Stop," he said. Not angry. Almost tired. The operator said, "Security is being notified. Do you see the emergency stop switch?" He turned the key again. The elevator dropped hard enough that I grabbed the rail. He must have taken it out of service mode, because the floor numbers flickered back to life. 6, 7, 8. He did not look at me now. He looked at the doors. The operator kept asking questions. "Are you injured? Can you move away from him?" I did not answer because the man was listening. At 2, the elevator slowed. He turned toward me. "You got confused," he said. The doors opened on the ER lobby. Not the main lobby. The ER lobby, bright and ugly and full of people who had no idea they were the most beautiful thing I had seen all night. A security guard stood near the metal detector, talking to a nurse with a coffee. A man in a Phillies hoodie slept across 3 chairs. Someone's toddler was crying. The fake technician stepped out first, then turned right toward a service corridor. I walked left, straight to the security guard. I did not run. I think some part of me believed that if I ran, the whole lobby would turn into that dark floor again. The security guard looked at my face and said, "What happened?" I handed him my hospital badge because I suddenly could not stand having anything around my neck. They searched the service floor. They searched the closed north wing. They found the bed, the monitor, and my student ID, but not the man. The monitor was a portable training unit running on battery. It had been set to beep at 5-second intervals. There was no patient attached to it, obviously, just a cord tucked under a sheet. Facilities came in around 5 a.m. with a manager named Linda, who looked like she had been called out of bed. She checked the key logs, the contractor list, and the overnight maintenance schedule. Nobody named Eric, Ray, Mike, or anything close to the name printed on the man's temporary badge was working that night. The badge number belonged to an old visitor pass system they had stopped using 2 years earlier. She also told security that a facility's key ring had gone missing the week before from a vendor locker. That was the official proof. No such worker existed. No testing had been scheduled. Staff elevator B should not have been stopping on M, because M was a locked service level connected to a closed ward used for storage and simulations. Unofficially, one of the ER nurses pulled me aside and said, "You're not the first student to say that elevator acts funny." I asked what she meant. She looked toward the elevators and shook her head. "Not ghosts. People. People figure out patterns before admin does." I finished the rotation because leaving would have cost money I did not have and delayed graduation paperwork I could not afford to delay. But I changed everything I could. I stopped using that elevator even in daylight. I took the stairs with other people or walked through the main lobby. I unclipped my visiting badge whenever I left a secured area so strangers could not read where I belonged. I also moved out of the room above the nail salon and spent the last 2 weeks sleeping on a friend's couch in New Jersey, even though the commute was awful. Sometimes I think about the moment the elevator opened onto that dark floor and how quiet it was except for the monitor. Nothing in me had a complete reason yet. I did not have proof. I did not even know my ID was missing. I only had the feeling that the hallway had been waiting for me specifically. I used to think fear was only useful after you understood the danger. Now I think sometimes your body notices the pattern while your brain is still trying to be polite about it. The pink baby sock was tied in a knot around the nursery window handle. I found it at 12:40 a.m. on a Thursday at Mercy Grove Women's Pavilion outside Tulsa, where I worked as an overnight cleaner. I was 36, divorced, raising an 11-year-old son, and taking every extra shift I could because braces were somehow more expensive than my first car. The maternity unit was usually the calmest part of my route after visiting hours. Empty rocking chairs, dimmed lights, the soft hum of vending machines, nurses talking low at the desk. The sock was the first thing out of place. I was alone on that side because the other cleaner, Daryl, was running the floor machine down near outpatient imaging. I had always been the kind of person who responded too quickly when somebody sounded upset. My mom used to say I could not hear a crying stranger without trying to fix something. So when I heard a woman sobbing near the family waiting room, I did not think danger. I thought postpartum mom, lost visitor, bad news, or somebody who needed a nurse and was too embarrassed to ask. She was standing by the nursery glass with both hands tucked into the sleeves of a cream sweater. The nursery itself was empty. Mercy Grove had switched to rooming in years earlier, so babies stayed with their mothers unless there was a medical reason. The old nursery window was mostly for grandparents who still expected to see rows of bassinets like in movies. At night it reflected the hallway more than anything behind it. The woman's reflection looked at me before she did. "Have you seen my baby?" she asked. Her voice was soft, almost scraped raw. I stopped pushing my trash cart. "Do you need me to get a nurse?" "My baby," she said. "They said she was here." I looked toward the nurse's station. It was around the corner, maybe 30 steps away, but from where we stood I could not see it. The unit had those annoying bends built into the hallway so families did not stare straight into patient rooms. "What's your name?" I asked. She shook her head. "Are you a patient?" "I just need to look." She reached for the nursery door handle. I said, "Ma'am, you can't go in there." Her hand stopped. For a second, she looked completely normal. Tired, pale, maybe in her 30s. Brown hair pulled into a messy bun. No shoes squeaking, no dramatic behavior, no screaming. If anything, she seemed too quiet for someone in crisis. "I'm sorry," she said. "I thought you worked here." "I do. Cleaning. I can get a nurse." "No," she said quickly. That was the first part one did not like, but I had a normal explanation ready. Some people are scared of nurses. Some people do not want a scene. Some people think cleaners know more than we do, because we move everywhere and nobody stops us. The woman looked at my name patch. "Megan, please." I hated that she used my name. It made it harder to walk away. I told her to wait there and went to the nurse's station. A nurse named Alicia was charting with a ginger ale beside her keyboard. I asked if anyone was missing a visitor. Alicia looked up. "What visitor?" I described the woman. "No one's supposed to be back there except 2 dads and 214 and 218, she said. "Where is she now?" We both walked back. The hallway was empty. The sock was still tied to the handle. Alicia untied it with 2 fingers and dropped it into a clear bag like she had done that before. "You know her?" she asked me. "No." "You sure?" I almost said yes automatically, then stopped. There had been something familiar about her face, but not enough to place. Security came up and did a quick loop. They did not find her. One guard checked the visitor bathrooms, the family waiting room, and the elevator lobby. Another watched the cameras with the house supervisor. The woman had entered through the main lobby around midnight, wearing a visitor sticker, but the camera angle did not catch the name printed on it. She left through a stairwell camera that was blurry enough to make everyone mad, but not useful enough to help. By 1:30, people went back to work. I went back to cleaning. That is how hospitals are. Something strange happens, everyone tightens for a few minutes, then someone needs medicine, someone needs discharge papers, someone spills coffee, and the building exhales. The second time I heard her was 2 nights later. Same hallway, same hour. This time there was no sock. There was a folded baby blanket on one of the waiting room chairs, pale yellow with little ducks along the edge. It was not hospital linen. It looked like something from a gift bag. "Have you seen my baby?" I turned slowly. She stood near the hand-washing sink outside room 216. I had my radio clipped to my waistband. My fingers went to it, but I did not press the button right away. She looked worse than before. Hair down now. Sweater button wrong. Eyes fixed on the doors past me. "Ma'am," I said, "I'm going to get the nurse." She doesn't like nurses. "What's your baby's name?" She blinked, like the question bothered her. Then she said, "Emma." There was no baby Emma on that hall. I knew because I emptied the white bards into trash every morning after families left, and because maternity was a small unit. That night there was a Noah, a Grace, a Mateo, and one baby whose parents had not chosen yet. I pressed my radio. "Daryl, can you come to maternity?" The woman heard the click. Her face changed, not into anger exactly. More like disappointment. "You didn't have to do that." The elevator dinged around the corner. She turned and walked away, fast but not running. Daryl found me standing there with the yellow blanket in my hand. He was 58, built like a refrigerator, and had worked in that hospital since before I moved to Oklahoma. He looked at the blanket and said, "Nope." That was Daryl's whole sentence. Alicia called security again. This time they took it more seriously. The visitor sticker the woman had worn was found stuck to the underside of a chair in the waiting room. The name on it was Mrs. Carter, room 218. Mrs. Carter was a grandmother from Broken Arrow who had been asleep in a recliner beside her daughter all night and had never seen the woman. The next morning, management reminded us not to let any visitors tailgate through locked maternity doors. It was a good reminder, but it made me feel blamed in a way I could not explain. I had not opened any doors for her. I had not let her in, but I had spoken to her. I had treated her like a sad person instead of a problem. On Sunday, I finally recognized her. Not in person. On my phone. I was eating a vending machine pretzel in the break room, and scrolling through old messages because my sister wanted to borrow a baby swing I had sold months earlier. I had used a local parenting app, one of those neighborhood marketplace groups where people sell strollers, formula coupons, school shoes, whatever their kids outgrow. There she was. Her profile name was Kayla M. She had bought a box of newborn clothes from me in July. We had met in the parking lot of a Brahms. She had worn sunglasses and a ball cap then, and I had barely looked at her because I was late picking up my son from camp. In the messages, I had complained about working nights at Mercy Grove because she said pickup after 8 p.m. was easiest for her. I scrolled up and read my own words. I'm usually at the hospital all night Thursday through Sunday, so mornings are better. Then I saw something that made me sit back. Her last message to me from July said, "Thank you again, Megan. Hope night shift treats you okay." I had never told her my last name. My profile only showed Megan T., but my hospital name patch had my full first name and department. Maybe she had seen me at work later. Maybe she had found me online. Maybe it was all coincidence piled on coincidence until it stopped feeling like coincidence. I took screenshots and showed Alicia at the start of my next shift. She told security. Security told us they would keep an eye out. At 12:38 a.m., Kayla came back. I was cleaning the family bathroom near maternity, the one with the changing table and the squeaky door. The hallway outside was quiet. Daryl was supposed to be nearby, but I could hear the floor machine down the east corridor, which meant he was farther than I liked. A whisper came from outside the bathroom. "Megan." I stood with a roll of paper towels in my hand. The bathroom door was propped open with my cart. I could see only a slice of hallway through the gap. Kayla stepped into view. This time she was not crying. She looked at my cart, then at the ring of keys clipped to the retractable cord on my belt. Cleaners did not have nursery access, but we did have keys to closets, bathrooms, utility rooms, and the staff-only hallway that connected maternity to labor and delivery. "I need you to open something," she said. "No." The word came out before I had time to soften it. Her eyes moved back to my keys. "Just the side hall." "I can't." "You can." "I watched you." I reached for my radio. She moved faster than I expected and pushed my cart hard. It rolled into the bathroom door, trapping it half open, trapping me half inside. Not locked. Not impossible to move. Just enough that I had to shove the heavy trash side out of the way to get past her. She put one hand on the cart and leaned in. "My baby is in there." "No baby is in that hallway," I said. "Open it." I hit the radio button. Daryl, maternity bathroom now. Kayla grabbed the cord on my key ring. It snapped out from my belt with a sharp plastic sound, but did not break. I pulled back. The keys swung between us. For a second we were both holding them. Then Daryl came around the corner, pushing the floor machine like a small tank. He did not ask what was happening. He rammed the machine sideways between Kayla and the bathroom door, not hitting her, just filling the space with heavy metal and brushes and cord. "Back up," he said. Kayla let go of my keys. Daryl looked over his shoulder at me. "Go." I squeezed past the sink and out the other side, shaking so hard I almost tripped over the caution sign. Alicia had already heard my radio call and was at the nurse's station, locking down the maternity doors from her panel. Kayla stood on the other side of Daryl's machine with both hands open, like she wanted us to see she was harmless. "I just need to check," she said. Daryl did not move. A door opened behind the nurse's station and two dads stepped out, both confused and half asleep. That was enough. Kayla looked at them, then at the cameras, then turned and walked quickly toward the stairs. Security missed her by less than a minute, but she left her tote bag under the waiting room chair. Inside were normal things at first. Tissues, a water bottle, a phone charger. Then security found a baby monitor with no camera, a pair of hospital-style grippy socks, and a visitor sticker folded inside a receipt. The sticker had a different family's last name written on it in blue pen, one that matched a mother currently on the unit. There was also a little plastic clip shaped like a cloud. I recognized it immediately. It belonged to my cleaning cart. It had broken off 2 weeks earlier from the laminated sign that said wet floor. I had thrown it away in a hallway trash can. I do not know why she had kept it. I only know it was in her bag, alongside things that proved she had been watching the unit more closely than anyone wanted to admit. That was the object I think about most. Not the baby monitor. Not the fake visitor stickers. The broken cloud clip. It meant she had been close enough to dig through trash from my cart, or she had followed me when I did not notice. Security filed reports. The hospital changed visitor sticker colors every shift after that. They also stopped putting room numbers on stickers, which everyone had complained about for years and suddenly became possible overnight. I gave screenshots of my messages to the security supervisor, and she told me not to meet marketplace buyers alone anymore. Kayla MS profile disappeared before I got home. I never learned whether she had a child, lost a child, wanted someone else's child, or used the story because it worked on people like me. Part of me still hates not knowing. Another part of me knows an explanation would not make the hallway feel safer. I changed my route 2 weeks later. Daryl took maternity, and I took outpatient imaging, where the creepiest thing was a vending machine that ate quarters. I deleted the parenting app. I stopped putting my schedule in messages, even casual ones. At work, I turned my name patch around whenever I was not near patients or staff. Sometimes a person asks for help because they need help. Sometimes they ask because they have already decided you are the kind of person who will step closer. That is the part one had to learn the hard way. Being needed can feel almost exactly like being used, right up until you reach for the door they wanted opened. At 10:18 on a rainy Thursday night in March of 2023, I was alone in the basement laundry room of St. Agnes Lofts in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, when the old wall intercom buzzed and lit up under a label that said South Psych. I was 24, working part-time as an EMT trainee and doing grocery delivery on the side, which is why I lived in a building that used to be a hospital instead of somewhere normal. The apartments were cheap, the ceilings were high, and the landlord kept saying the sealed psychiatric wing underneath us was unsafe and waiting on demolition. Like that explained everything. I had signed the lease 2 months earlier because my old roommate moved to Texas with 5 days' notice, and I didn't have enough saved for first, last, and security anywhere else. I was embarrassed about how relieved I felt when the building manager, Mark Ellison, told me he could work with me on the deposit. So when the intercom buzzed from a part of the building that was supposedly dead, I didn't run upstairs or call anyone. I stood there with a basket of damp scrubs on my hip and stared at the little red light, thinking old wiring did weird things in old buildings. The laundry room was at the bottom of a tiled stairwell that still had a metal handrail polished smooth by decades of hospital staff. The dryers sat where, according to the older tenants, the linen carts used to be stored. Past the machines was a set of double doors with wired glass windows, chained shut with a padlock the size of my fist. Behind those doors was the old psychiatric wing. Nobody called it by its official name. Mark called it the lower level. Denise from 4C called it the ward. The lease called it a restricted maintenance area. The doors had been painted gray, but the paint was old enough that you could still see the ghost of stenciled letters beneath it. Authorized personnel only. The intercom was mounted beside the folding table. Most of the buttons had apartment numbers written on strips of masking tape. Below those, someone had typed South Psych on a yellowed label. Its light blinked twice, then went dark. A dryer thumped behind me. Rainwater ticked through a pipe somewhere in the ceiling. I waited long enough to feel stupid, then went back to folding my clothes. The second time it buzzed, there was a voice. Not loud, not clear, just a breathy little scrape through the speaker. Hello? I moved closer before I decided to. The speaker crackled again. Can you hear me? It sounded like a woman, maybe older, maybe not. The building was full of weird echoes, and the intercom was probably older than my parents. I pressed the talk button. Who is this? Nothing answered. The light went out again. I stood there for almost a minute with my finger hovering over the button. Then I opened my phone and texted Mark. Basement intercom just buzzed from South Psych. Might be electrical? He didn't answer, but that didn't surprise me. He answered maintenance requests when he felt like it. I finished my laundry fast and carried it upstairs with one hand so I could keep the other on the railing. The first thing I noticed at my apartment door was a wet print on the concrete hallway floor. It wasn't a full shoe print, more like the front half of a work boot. Water had pooled in the groove of the sole and left a dark smear leading away from my door toward the stairwell. That could have been anyone. A tenant from upstairs. A delivery driver. Mark. The building smelled wet all the time when it rained. But my apartment was at the end of the third-floor hall. Nobody had a reason to stop in front of it unless they were coming to see me. I unlocked my door, went in, and used the deadbolt and chain. Then I stood in the dark living room, listening to the hallway. I don't know what I expected. Footsteps maybe. A cough. Some sign that my brain had made the whole thing bigger than it was. There was nothing. The next morning, I left for my EMT class at 6:30. Mark was in the lobby with a cardboard coffee cup, talking to a guy in paint-splattered pants I had seen around the building a few times. The guy's name was Carl. He did odd maintenance jobs and never looked at anyone for more than half a second. Mark smiled when he saw me. "Hey, 3B. You texted me last night." I hated that he called me by my unit number. "Yeah." The basement intercom was acting up. "Old system," he said. "We're ripping it out when they start the lower level work." The light came from South Psych. His smile stayed there, but his eyes moved to Carl for a second. Carl looked down at his coffee. "Probably crossed wires," Mark said. "Don't mess with those doors, all right? There's exposed insulation and some bad flooring past there." I didn't. "I know. Just saying." He said it in the same tone people use when they're being friendly on purpose. I nodded and went to class. For the next week, nothing happened. That was what made it easy to let the whole thing fade. I had 12-hour clinicals, delivery shifts after dark, and an exam coming up. I saw wet footprints in the stairwell once, but it had rained again. I heard a knock from below the laundry room one night, but the washer was off balance. Every weird thing had a boring explanation if I wanted one badly enough. Then, the following Tuesday, I came home and found a maintenance notice taped to my door. Water pressure check, Thursday 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Units 2A, 3B, 3D, 5C. I pulled the paper off and read it 3 times. The notice looked official. Same blue logo, same bad printer streaks. But my water pressure was fine, and the units listed made no sense. They weren't stacked above each other. They weren't on the same line. I texted Denise upstairs because she knew everything about the building. "Did you get a water pressure notice?" She replied a minute later. "No." "Why?" I sent her a photo. She wrote back, "Do not let Carl in if he comes alone." I stared at that sentence longer than I want to admit. Then another text came in from her. "Mark used to do checks when my niece lived here. She moved out because of it." I called her. She didn't answer, but a few seconds later she texted, "At work. Talk later. Keep chain on." I kept the chain on all night. Thursday came, and nobody knocked at 6. Nobody knocked at 7. At 7:42, I started to feel ridiculous for spending the evening sitting on my couch with the TV muted. The longer nothing happened, the easier it was to picture myself as the type of person who overreacted to a maintenance notice. At 7:58, the basement intercom buzzed through my apartment speaker. Every apartment had a wall box by the front door for visitors in the lobby. Mine had never worked. Mark said the whole system was unreliable. The little red light beside lobby didn't light. The one beside South Psych did. I didn't press talk. I didn't move. I watched it blink, steady and patient. Then the speaker clicked and the same soft voice said, "Can you hear me?" Only this time, I heard something under it. A plastic scrape. A click. Then muffled talking, like people speaking from the bottom of a long hallway. I put on shoes without tying them. I don't know why my first thought was to go downstairs. Maybe because I had EMT training drilled into me, and a voice behind a locked door sounded like someone trapped. Maybe because admitting someone was playing with me from inside my own building was worse than checking. I grabbed my phone, my keys, and a heavy flashlight I kept under the sink. The basement smelled like dryer sheets and old water. The laundry machines were empty. The double doors to the old wing looked the same at first. Chain, padlock, dust on the glass. Then my flashlight hit the right window. There were fingerprints on the inside. Not one or two. A whole fan of them, low on the glass, like someone had pressed their hand there and slid it down. The dust was wiped clean where the fingers had dragged. I stepped back and looked at the chain. It was wrapped around the handles, but not through them the way I had always assumed. The padlock held the chain in a loop. If you lifted one handle and pushed the other door inward at the same time, there was enough slack for the right door to open about 8 inches. Enough for a person to squeeze through. Enough for a person to reach out. I was backing away when the voice came again, not through the laundry room intercom this time, but from behind the doors. "Hello." I stopped breathing for a second. Then I heard the click again. A tape button. The voice repeated in the exact same tone. "Can you hear me?" I don't know why that made me angrier than scared at first. Maybe because a real person trapped down there would have been one kind of emergency. A recording meant somebody had arranged it. Somebody had counted on me caring. I put my phone up and started recording video. Then I pushed the right door with my foot. It opened just enough. The hallway beyond it was colder than the laundry room. My flashlight beam caught peeling green paint, old room numbers, and a nurse station window covered with dust. A wheelchair sat folded against the wall. Farther in, down a corridor that turned left, I could see the glow of a small lamp. I should have called someone right then. I didn't. Not because I was brave. Because I still thought I could get a video, send it to Mark, and force him to explain why there was power in a sealed wing. I squeezed through. The tape recorder was in a room that had probably once been used for meetings. 8 plastic chairs were arranged in a circle. A folding table sat against the far wall with a cheap lamp on it. Beside the lamp was a silver tape recorder, the kind my grandmother used to keep in her kitchen for grocery lists. It was playing low voices. A man asked someone to start from the beginning. A woman cried quietly. Then the tape clicked, rewound a little, and the woman's voice said, "Can you hear me?" I didn't touch the recorder. I filmed it from the doorway. Then I saw the monitor. It was behind the lamp, half hidden by a cardboard box. A small security screen, maybe 12 inches wide, showed a grainy black and white view of a hallway. My hallway. My apartment door was centered on the screen. I could see the mat I bought from Target. I could see the paper grocery bag I had forgotten to bring inside. I could see the little dent in the metal frame where the deadbolt slid in. For a few seconds, my mind refused to arrange the pieces. Then a door slammed somewhere above me. A man's voice echoed from the stairwell. He went down. It was Carl. Another voice answered lower. "Mark, check the meeting room." I turned off my flashlight. The room went almost black except for the lamp and the security screen. I moved behind the half-open door and crouched, but there was nowhere to hide properly. The chairs were too thin. The table had no cover. The old cabinets had glass fronts. Footsteps came through the double doors, slow and careful. Carl said he saw it. Mark answered, "Keep your voice down." I looked at the room again, looking for anything useful, and saw a beige phone mounted beside the door. It had a row of buttons and a cracked plastic label. Nurse station. Lobby. I'll call. The old system was still alive. I crossed to it as quietly as I could, lifted the receiver, and pressed all call. The line buzzed in my ear. Then my own voice came out of speakers somewhere in the ceiling, too loud and flat. "There are men in the restricted basement. Mark and Carl are in the old wing. Somebody come to the lobby now." The footsteps stopped. I dropped the receiver and ran toward the nurse station. Behind it was another door with a glowing green exit button. I hit the button with my palm. Something magnetic thunked loose. The door opened into a service corridor I had never seen before. Behind me, Mark shouted my name. Not 3B this time. My real name. That scared me more than the shouting. The service corridor led to a fire stairwell. I went through, pulled the door shut, and saw the old mechanical latch on the stair side. The door had a metal drop bar meant to keep patients from wandering into the back halls. It was raised. I lowered it. A second later, someone hit the other side of the door hard enough to rattle the frame. "Open it," Mark said. I didn't answer. I ran up one flight and came out behind the lobby mailboxes. Denise was already there in her red pharmacy smock, hair still wet from the rain, with 2 other tenants behind her. Someone was recording on their phone. Someone else had a baseball bat, which looked ridiculous and comforting at the same time. The old intercom speakers crackled again. Then Mark's voice came faintly from below. "Open the door." Denise looked at me, then at the basement stairwell. "Stay here," she said. But I didn't. I went straight out the front entrance into the rain and stood under the awning with my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. Through the lobby glass, I watched Denise and the others wait by the stairwell until Mark came up alone 5 minutes later. His face had changed completely. No smile, no friendly landlord voice. Just a man who had been caught in a place he had told everyone was sealed. Carl came after him, carrying the tape recorder under his jacket. Denise stepped in front of him and said, "Put it on the floor." He did. Nobody touched anybody. Nobody screamed. That made it worse somehow. The whole scene looked like a bad tenant meeting, except Mark's pants were dusty from the knees down and Carl kept looking at the exit. The next morning, there was a new lock on the basement door and a printed notice about false reports and restricted areas. By noon, my online tenant portal said my lease would not be renewed due to violation of safety policy. But I had proof, at least proof enough for myself. When I went back to my apartment with Denise standing beside me, my door frame was chipped around the deadbolt. The metal strike plate had fresh scratches on it. The chain lock was bent outward, like someone had tried to force the door while it was still attached. Mark said old buildings settled. Denise laughed in his face. I moved out 3 weeks later with help from my brother and 2 of his friends. I lost my deposit. Mark billed me for door damage. I didn't fight it because fighting meant seeing him again. The city never did much with the report as far as I know. No one was arrested. The lower level was sealed with plywood and new drywall that summer. St. Agnes Lofts changed management by the end of the year, and the website stopped advertising historic hospital charm. I live in a regular ugly apartment complex now. Thin walls, low ceilings, beige carpet. I pay more than I can comfortably afford, but every door in my place leads somewhere it's supposed to. My overnight routine in the ER used to start the same way every shift. Bad coffee, badge swipe, check the board, pretend I wasn't already tired. In August of 2024, I was 28 and a first-year emergency medicine resident at Lakeview Mercy Hospital in Cleveland, Ohio, living alone in a studio near Lakewood because it was close enough to sleep between shifts. I was new, broke, and constantly afraid someone would notice I was not as confident as I tried to sound. The first wrong thing happened at 2:13 a.m., right after a 3-car crash came in and the whole department tightened like a fist. A tall older doctor in a white coat stepped beside me at Trauma Bay 2 and said, "Slow down. Start with the airway. You know this." I remember noticing he hadn't scanned into the room or opened the chart, but the bay was full, alarms were going off, and senior doctors appeared from nowhere during bad nights all the time. His coat said Hale. No first name, just Hale embroidered in navy thread above the pocket. He had silver hair, a narrow face, and the kind of calm voice that made everyone else quieter. I had heard the name before, but only as a story. People at Lakeview talked about Dr. Hale like he was part of the building. Some said he had been the strictest attending the hospital ever had. Some said he could diagnose a patient from the doorway. Some said if your shift got truly ugly, Dr. Hale would show up, which I assumed meant an older attending would wander down from another floor, and the nurses would joke about it later. Hospitals run on dark humor and half-true legends. I didn't think about it beyond that. The patient in Trauma Bay 2 was awake, scared, and breathing badly through a swollen nose. Nothing dramatic, but everything needed to happen in the right order. I had been in enough simulations to know the steps. In real life, with blood pressure numbers changing and family members crying outside the curtain, knowledge can scatter. Hale didn't touch the patient. He stood close enough that only I could hear him. Ask respiratory for the smaller mask. I did. Don't let them lay him flat yet. I repeated it. Good. Now tell the nurse you want suction ready before you move him. I said it, and the nurse nodded like I had made a solid call. Within 10 minutes, the room felt manageable. The attending on call, Dr. Reed, arrived from another bay and took over. When I looked back for Hale, he was gone. I tried to find him after the rush settled. Not because anything felt dangerous yet, because he had saved me from looking lost in front of everyone, and I wanted to thank him without sounding desperate. At 4:30, I asked a nurse named Marcus, "Is Dr. Hale still here?" Marcus was at the Pyxis machine, pulling meds for room 12. He looked over his shoulder. "Who?" "Dr. Hale. Older guy. White coat." Marcus stopped what he was doing. "Say that again." I did. He closed the drawer and signed out of the medication system before answering. "There's no Dr. Hale on tonight. Maybe surgery? Not in our ER. He was in trauma too." Marcus studied my face for a second, and that made me defensive before he said anything. "Did he touch the patient?" "No." "Did he ask you to sign anything?" "No." "Pull meds?" "No." Marcus nodded slowly. "If you see him again, you come get me." That was the first time I felt embarrassed instead of grateful. It sounded like I had fallen for a prank. I went to the physician workroom and searched the staff directory. No Hale. I checked the schedule. No Hale. Then I searched old staff photos on the hospital intranet because I had heard enough hallway stories to be curious. I found him in a 1987 surgical department photo. Dr. Arthur Hale stood in the back row, same narrow face, same straight posture, though the man I saw in trauma 2 had been older. The caption said he had been chief of surgery for 11 years. A short memorial article said he died in 1999. I sat there staring at the photo until Dr. Reed came in with a granola bar in one hand. "You look like you saw billing paperwork." I turned the monitor slightly. "Who is Dr. Hale?" Reed's expression changed, but not the way it would if she thought I was crazy. More like she was tired of a problem coming back. "Where did you hear that name?" "In trauma 2. She set the granola bar down. "From who?" I described him. Silver hair. White coat. Calm voice. Hale over the pocket. Dr. Reed rubbed her eyes. "Did he ask you for anything?" "Why does everyone keep asking that?" "Because sometimes people show up here during chaos and pretend they belong. That happens. More than it should." She told me the real Dr. Hale had been brilliant and awful, depending on who you asked. After he died, the hospital kept his portrait in an old conference room. Years later, during construction, some of his old coats and badges went missing from storage. The first time someone claimed to see Dr. Hale, after that, everyone laughed. The second time, a nurse almost let the man into a medication room. Security never found him that night. The story became half joke again, because that was easier than admitting a stranger could walk into an emergency department wearing the right clothes and be trusted for 30 seconds. "Don't be embarrassed," Dr. Reed said. "That's how he gets close. He helps first." That sentence stayed with me. For the next few weeks, every older man in a white coat made me look twice. Nothing happened, and my shifts went back to their regular bad rhythm. A person can get used to almost anything when they're tired enough. I started telling myself the man in trauma 2 had been a visiting specialist, someone outside the directory, and everyone had overreacted because of an old hospital ghost story that wasn't actually a ghost story at all. Then September rolled into flu season early, and one Friday night we were holding 21 patients in the ER because there were no beds upstairs. The hallway smelled like disinfectant, coffee, and wet jackets. I had been awake for nearly 20 hours. Around 1 a.m., an elderly man in room 7 became confused and pulled out his 4. His daughter was crying. The monitor wouldn't stop chirping. I stepped into the hall to call Dr. Reed. Hale was standing by the supply cart. Same coat, same hair, same steady face. He said, "You're getting better." I didn't answer right away. He smiled a little, like he understood nerves. "Room 7 needs something to settle him before he hurts himself," he said. "Come with me. Dr. Reed is covering room 7. She's tied up." I spoke to her. He turned and walked toward the medication room. I stayed where I was. He looked back, not annoyed, not rushed, just expectant. You don't want to make him wait, do you? That was the part that almost worked. Not the authority, not the coat, the suggestion that I would be failing someone if I slowed down. I said, I need the order in the chart. I'll enter it after. Pull it under override. I heard Marcus's voice from weeks earlier. If you see him again, you come get me. I have to check something, I said. Hale took one step closer. In a busy ER, one step is nothing. People move around you all night. But his step closed the space between us in a way that made my hand go to my badge. He looked at the motion. Don't make this difficult. No shouting. No threat. Just a quiet sentence from a man used to being obeyed. I turned like I was going toward the physician pod, but he matched me. I realized he wasn't trying to guide me to the medication room anymore. He was guiding me away from the nurse's station, toward the short side hall that led to radiology transport and the staff elevator. There were fewer people there. The cameras in that corner were old black domes that might or might not work. He said, "We'll talk where it's quieter." I saw Marcus at the far end of the station with a phone tucked between his shoulder and ear. I didn't wave. I didn't yell. I just said too loudly, "Marcus, can you waste this med with me?" Every nurse in the station knew what that meant. You don't say it unless there is medication to verify. There wasn't. Marcus looked up. Hale's face didn't change, but his eyes moved to Marcus. Marcus hung up the phone without saying goodbye and walked straight toward us. He wasn't a huge guy, but he had worked ER nights for 15 years and carried himself like a door you couldn't push open. "You lost?" Marcus asked him. Hale gave him a polite little nod. "I'm assisting Dr. Carter." That was me. Dr. Carter. Hearing my name in his mouth made the hallway seem narrower. Marcus stepped between us. "No, you're not." For 1 second, nobody moved. People talk about fights like there is always noise before them, but this was almost silent. A monitor beeped behind a curtain. A cartwheel squeaked. Someone laughed near triage, unaware of any of it. Hale reached into his coat pocket. Marcus grabbed his wrist and pinned it against the wall. Not hard enough to injure him. Hard enough to stop him. "Security," Marcus said, calm as a weather report. The pocket held a hospital ID badge with Dr. Arthur Hale's old photo laminated under new plastic. There was a strip of magnetic tape stuck crookedly to the back. It looked homemade once you actually saw it in the light. Security came fast, but the part that mattered had already happened. Marcus kept himself between us until 2 guards took the man down the service hall. The man never raised his voice. He never gave a dramatic reason. He just kept saying, "There's been a misunderstanding," like if he repeated it enough, the hospital would apologize and let him go. Later, administration told us he was named Daniel Hale. He was Arthur Hale's son. He had never been a physician. He had worked for a medical device vendor years earlier and knew just enough hospital language to sound legitimate during a rush. He had been banned from the property twice for trying to access restricted areas and old storage rooms. The night he approached me, he had already talked his way past a volunteer at the entrance and used a crowded hallway to avoid the main desk. He had a list of staff names printed from somewhere, maybe an old directory, maybe social media. Mine was circled. The department manager confirmed what everyone had already said. There was no Dr. Hale on staff, no visiting physician by that name, and no order anywhere for me to pull medication for room 7. The real patient in room 7 needed a sitter and a calm voice, not the drug Daniel Hale wanted me to access. I don't know what he planned to do with it. I don't really need to. For weeks afterward, people tried to make it funny, because that's what hospital people do when something scares them too much. They called him Fake Hale. Someone taped over the old Hale portrait in the conference room with a flyer about badge compliance. Marcus told me I did the right thing, then told every new resident for the rest of the month that no one gets medication without an order, even if the Pope asks. I changed in smaller ways. I stopped letting praise move me faster than policy. I stopped assuming confidence meant competence. I learned to ask, "What's your role here?" and wait for the answer, even when the room was busy and everyone seemed annoyed. The patient from Trauma Bay 2 lived. Room 7 was fine. Nothing awful happened in front of me. That is the part that still bothers me sometimes. He helped first. He made himself useful. He picked the one weakness I was ashamed of and pressed on it gently. Now, when someone in a hospital hallway knows my name before I know theirs, I turn my badge around and look at theirs. Title: Story 3, The Discharge Papers. The discharge papers already had my signature on them before anyone handed me a pen. That was the first thing I remember clearly after the crash outside Paducah, Kentucky, in November of 2023. I was 32, a regional sales rep from Tampa, driving alone to a client meeting in Louisville because the company flight budget had been cut, and I was too worried about keeping my job to argue. I had clipped a guardrail on a wet stretch of I-24, not badly enough to be a headline, but badly enough for an ambulance, a tow truck, and a night in a small regional hospital I had never heard of before. I was alone because my family was in Florida, my co-workers thought I was still on the road, and my girlfriend had become my ex 2 months earlier. I was trying very hard not to be the grown man who needed someone to come rescue him from a minor accident in another state. So when I saw the signature, I didn't make a scene. Hospitals have carbon copies and electronic forms and printed acknowledgments. I had been given pain medicine. My head felt stuffed with cotton. I figured I had signed something earlier and forgotten. The nurse who brought the clipboard was real. Her badge said Tina R., and she had tired eyes and compression socks with cartoon dogs on them. She checked my wristband, asked my pain level, and told me the scans looked okay. Bruised ribs, mild concussion, no fracture. I would be discharged once I had a ride and someone to stay with me for the night. I don't have anyone here, I said. We can help arrange transport to a hotel, she said. But you can't drive yourself. That made sense. My rental car was gone, probably in a tow yard with one headlight hanging out. My phone was at 12%. My charger was in the car. My wallet and work laptop were in a plastic hospital bag under the bed. Tina pointed to the papers. Don't sign anything yet. Case management will come by. I remember that because she said it clearly. Don't sign anything yet. About 20 minutes later, a man knocked once and came in without waiting for an answer. He was in his 40s with a trimmed beard, a navy jacket, and a plastic badge on a lanyard that flipped backward when he walked. He carried a tablet in one hand and my phone in the other. Mr. Alvarez, he said. I'm Kyle. Patient liaison. My name is Daniel Alvarez. Hearing someone say it calmly in a hospital room makes them feel official, even if you don't know why they're there. He set my phone on the rolling table. Good news. We got you a ride and a room. Your roadside plan covers it. I blinked at him. My roadside plan? Through the rental company. It came up with the tow. That was possible. I had rented the car through a travel app connected to my corporate card. There were so many little add-ons and policies that I rarely read all of them. Kyle spoke quickly, like he was used to explaining the same process to people who were half awake. You'll be at the Red Pine Motor Lodge tonight, 5 minutes from here. Driver is already assigned. I haven't called anyone. No worries. We got your sister notified. That was the second strange thing, though I didn't react right away. My sister's name is Marisol. She's my emergency contact on some forms, but not all. I couldn't remember giving it to anyone at that hospital. But after a crash, your information gets pulled from your wallet, rental account, insurance, phone, everything. I was too tired to sort out what was normal. What did you tell her? That you're okay and being discharged. You can call her from the room. He slid the clipboard closer. I just need signatures here and here so we can release you to transport. The top sheet said Barkley Regional Medical Center. That was the hospital. Under responsible party, it listed my name and date of birth. Under transport contact, it said Kyle M. Under relationship to patient, someone had typed caregiver. I don't know you, I said. Kyle gave a little laugh, not offended, not friendly. You don't have to. It's just the release category. He tapped the signature line. I almost signed because I wanted the night to end. My ribs hurt when I breathed too deeply. My head ached behind my eyes. I wanted a shower, a phone charger, and a door I could lock. Then I remembered Tina saying, "Don't sign anything yet." "I want to talk to the nurse first," I said. Kyle's smile thinned. "She sent me." She said case management. "That's me." "Your badge is turned around." He looked down like he hadn't noticed, flipped it with 2 fingers, and showed me a white plastic card. It had a blue logo and the word access printed at the top, but no hospital name. No photo. No title. I didn't say anything. Kyle turned it back around almost immediately. "Daniel, I know it's been a long night," he said. "I'm trying to keep you from getting stuck here until morning. Hotels fill up. Drivers cancel. If we don't get you checked out now, you may be sleeping in a hallway." That was a very specific pressure point. I had already seen patients lined up in the ER hallway when I came in. I had heard someone coughing behind a curtain for 2 hours. I didn't want to be needy. I didn't want to be difficult. But I also didn't pick up the pen. Kyle looked at my phone on the table. "Your sister's going to worry if you drag this out." That did it, though not in the way he meant. I reached for my phone. "I'll call her." He picked it up first and held it out, but not close enough for me to take. "Battery's almost dead. Better once we're in the van." "The van? Medical transport. I thought it was a rideshare." He paused for less than a second. "Same thing for billing." The hallway outside my room was busy enough that I could hear wheels, voices, and overhead page. Help was nearby in that broad, useless way where everyone was working and nobody was actually watching your room. I held out my hand. "My phone." Kyle gave it to me, but he stayed beside the bed. I opened my messages with my thumb. The screen brightness hurt my eyes. There was a thread with Marisol near the top. The last message had been sent from my phone at 1:08 a.m. "I'm okay. Discharging soon. Don't call, bad signal. Driver taking me to hotel." Below it, Marisol had written, "What driver? Daniel, call me. Why are you texting weird?" The current time was 1:46. I had not been awake at 1:08. At 1:08, I was still in the scan room or back in this bed with the rails up. I remembered a nurse telling me to keep my eyes open while she checked my pupils around 1:25. My phone had been in the plastic bag with my clothes until Kyle brought it in. I looked up slowly. Kyle was watching my face, not the phone. "Everything good?" he asked. I locked the screen. "Yeah, she's just worried. Normal. I need the bathroom before we go." He didn't move. "I can get a nurse. I can walk." "Concussion protocol," he said. "I'll help. No offense, but I'd rather have hospital staff help me pee." For the first time, irritation showed. It was small, a tightening around his mouth. "I'll get someone," he said. He took the clipboard with him when he left. That mattered. A real hospital form would stay with the patient or the nurse. Kyle didn't want it out of his hand. The room felt different once he was gone. Not safer, just quieter. I pulled the plastic bag from under the bed and found my jeans, shoes, wallet, and cracked work phone. The work phone was dead, but my wallet was there. So was the rental agreement. The tow receipt had a logo for Black River Recovery and a handwritten number. I dressed slowly because moving fast hurt. My ribs protested when I bent for my shoes. I left the hospital gown on the bed, folded badly, like I intended to come back. Then I stepped into the hallway. Kyle was at the nurse's station talking to a woman in purple scrubs I hadn't seen before. He had his back to me. Tina was not there. I turned the opposite way. Hospitals are confusing on purpose when you're not staff. Every hallway looks half familiar and half wrong. I passed radiology, a family waiting room, and a set of elevators. A sign pointed left for exit and right for cafeteria. I went right, not because I wanted food, because no one expects a patient to escape through breakfast. The cafeteria had just opened for early staff. There were construction workers, 2 nurses, a man in a sheriff's department jacket eating eggs by himself, and a cashier putting coffee lids into a plastic bin. I got in line behind a woman buying oatmeal. My hospital bracelet was still on. My hair probably looked insane. Nobody paid much attention. I heard Kyle's voice before I saw him. "Daniel." He was at the cafeteria entrance, scanning the room. I picked up an empty tray and moved one person forward in line. The woman ahead of me glanced back. I gave her a polite, tired smile like everything was normal. Carl stepped into the cafeteria, then stopped. Too many people, too much light, too many witnesses who did not owe him anything. My phone buzzed in my hand. Unknown number. Where did you go? Transport waiting. I didn't reply. The cashier looked at my bracelet and said, "Honey, you okay?" I kept my voice low. "Can I use your phone? Someone's trying to discharge me with a driver I didn't request." She didn't ask a single dramatic question. She pointed to the wall phone behind her and said, "Use that one." I called Marisol first from memory. She answered on the first ring. "Daniel, I'm okay. Listen, did I text you? You texted like a robot. I've been calling. I didn't send it." There was a pause, then her voice changed. "Where are you?" "Hospital cafeteria. Stay around people." I called the rental roadside number next, reading it off the paperwork with shaking fingers. The actual service representative said they had no medical transport assigned. No Red Pine Motor Lodge booking. No Kylem. They had sent Black River Recovery for the car only.